Hey everybody. I've really been wanting to drive at home lately. That's why I'm spending so much time talking about, identity. Know who you are. Be strong in who you are. I was having an interesting conversation this morning with my aunt, and I was talking about, well, we were talking about, you know, craftsmanship and workmanship and a job that was done here recently that she was not happy with. Um, And she was talking about, even places that have been in business for a while or like seem to be slacking lately. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's everybody in the world is being trained to just not care anymore. That's why relationships suck. That's why uh, jobs suck. That's why service sucks. Nobody cares about anything but themselves anymore. Like they have molded a society of sociopaths. That's why, nobody hears messages like this because we've been trained to tune each other out. They don't silence us by shutting us up and shutting down our voices. They silence us by having everybody else tune out. That's why people aren't working together, like they used to. That's why, we're not getting anywhere. And it's horrible that it's working out that way, but that's how it is. Um, we're losing, they're winning. But I wanted to share a couple things that I came across. It's a great book, God's Promises for Your Every Need. It's very topical. I use it a lot to form Bible studies on topics. And, it's just what it says. It's promises of God that are given through the Bible, like things you can count on. And there's one here that specifically stood out to me, and I wanted to share it with you. It's Romans 5:5. And it says, now hope does not disappoint because the love of God has been poured out in our hearts by the Holy Spirit who was given to us. And I can absolutely um, can confirm on this. And it's an important one. But if you open yourself up and you let yourself, be primed to receive that spirit, to let it be active in you, to let it, guide you and take control, yeah, your hope and love will be abundant. There's no getting around it. And the other thing I wanted to share is um, this is a daily devotional. Every day it gives you a talk about something, and it goes with what I've been talking about lately, identity. And this is yesterday's for July 28th. And when I read it yesterday, I didn't do it till later at night, and I didn't really think about it much. But now that it sank in, I want to share it. Um, so for yesterday, it said, concerned about appearance. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons, and in your name perform many miracles? Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers. That's Matthew 7:22 and 23. This is what they have to say about that. Jesus confirms his teaching about integrity and daily living. The fact that someone preaches, casts out demons, and performs miracles is not indisputable proof that the person belongs to Jesus. One can easily be misled. Jesus' words, I never knew you, and get away from me, send shivers down one's spine. Through people's rebellion, they distanced themselves from Jesus. Now Jesus distances himself from them. Even worse is the fact that Jesus says, many will say to me on that day. Jesus is aware of the fact that many people stand under the banner of his ministry but rebel against him. It emphasizes Jesus' earlier advice, don't live your life backwards. And gives a reference to see Matthew 6:33. And here's a little footnote. God doesn't tolerate false appearances. He is concerned about a sincere life of obedience that is dedicated to Him. Don't be so worried about appearances. Rather, focus on complete obedience to God through Jesus. And I'm going to take that a step further, even if you are not spiritually minded like I am, and I wish you were, because it is a great foundation for strength. Even if it's not to God, make it to yourself. Make it to the divine part of yourself, what's in you that's connected to that source. For me, I understand that, that's why I worship the way I do. I understand where, that strength and that power comes from. And I understand how to access it and enhance it. And that's what I'm trying to teach you guys. You have to be your authentic self. You cannot be an image trying to please others. You have to be sincere. Everybody is wearing a mask to try and get one over on somebody or hide something. And that's not how we're supposed to be. It's okay. I'm telling you. Has it been a rough life living without the mask? Yes, it has. Yes, it has. You get used and abused, I'm not going to lie. But the rewards when they come through are so worth it. They really are. Just the fact that you can stand proud in who you are, you know who you are. All right, that's a rare thing to come across in the world today, is to find somebody who really knows who they are, who can speak and say, like I do, I am who I say I am. I'm not going to sit here and put out, false promises or false beliefs. If I don't believe in it, I'm not going to say it. And that's a problem a lot of people have, is that insincerity, that lack of integrity. Again, that's why relationships, suck. And I don't just mean romantic ones. I mean friendships, work partnerships. People are disconnecting not just from God, but from each other. There is very little humanity left in humanity right now. And it's very disparaging. And I see it clearly. You can see it in regular media. You see it in social media. All you got to do is pay attention. We are losing our humanity. We are learning to not just ignore, but even be downright cruel to one another. Instead of following, the one rule, love one another. We are focused on doing the absolute opposite. Anything but. And I really need people to take notice of that, because we are in dangerous times. And I think we're at the end of a certain age. I won't say the end of days, but the end of a certain age. And I think a lot of people should start preparing for what's coming next. Because if you know, you know. And you're going to want as many solid people around you as possible when that happens. You're going to want people that you're not going to have to question what their motives are. You don't want to question, their sincerity, if they really are intentional in their words and actions. Do they match up? Because the way people have been living in this world lately is not going to cut it for what's coming. We have to unlearn that. We have to make better habits, better choices. I'm really glad, I showed it in the last video, that our next Bible study is going to be specifically on spiritual warfare, because it's just, something I think more people need to be aware of in this day and age. And I am looking forward to sharing it. Oh, excuse me. As we go through it, and share in our group discussions. That's one thing I love about Bible study. If you can get involved in it, and you can get, you don't want a huge crowd, but you want more than a couple people if you can. Because the more people discussing it, the more eyes on it, the more can either bring up valid points or ask the right questions. I can't tell you how many times, I've heard a pastor, when I've asked a question, say, I honestly don't know, but let's find that out together. Because that's a good question. That's something I'd like to know too. And that's important. You have to understand, the world around you. And the problem is today, it's very much an illusion. And people are trying to mold the illusion instead of shape what is real, what is actually in front of them. We only have so much for resources to work with in the world today. Excuse me. I don't know why, because I slept good. It's just the heat lately. It takes it right out of you. But you got to push yourself. That's what I do. I don't overdo it to where I'm doing harm, but I do push myself to be active every day, because if you're not consistent, then you're not going to get anywhere. You can either make time or make excuses. And that's really what it comes down to. I'm tired of living the way that I was, so I need to make changes. And that means stop making excuses and start making changes. That's what it boils down to, and that's what I'm advising all of you to do. Get to know your real self. That's what God wants, your authentic self. We are meant to celebrate our differences from one another. We're supposed to bring that to the table. It's all about perception and perspective. It's all about sharing, knowledge and experience. And that's what a lot of people just aren't getting. Everybody's too focused on, again, screwing each other over. Get them before they get you. And that's why everybody's so miserable, because we're all forced to live that way, and that's not how we're meant to live. And I really need people to wake up to that fact and start going against the grain and standing up for themselves. Live how you're meant to live, not how they're trying to force you to live. Don't give in. Do not let them win. Do not let them take your humanity away from you. Everything I've been through, in this life, I have every reason to be, bitter and angry. And it does creep through, because I am still human. But the fact that I still, have that softness, that gentleness, that love in my heart, the fact that I refuse to give it up, I refuse to let this world harden me. It can make me more aware, but it will not harden me. I refuse to let it. Because that's what the world needs. The world needs that sincerity, that genuine, part of your soul that you can put out into the world. That's your gift. That's what you're meant to share. That's the character that life is about, that you're supposed to develop. And that's how you develop it, by sharing it. Because then people will either give you feedback and you'll know to make changes and improve it, or you'll be an inspiration and help others. And either way, it's a win. And these are the principles that people are losing sight of in their day-to-day lives. And I really, really need everyone to just wake up, hear me. Just give me a few. If you hear nothing else, hear that. Look at the world around you and look at yourself. And you will understand why you are not happy. And you'll understand, hopefully, how to change it. All it takes is a little thought, little effort. Change some habits, and you could be living in a completely different life. I'm experiencing that right now. My life is completely different to what it was, just a few months ago. And I could say it has improved in every aspect. And it was all making a few changes, both internally and externally. I got the bad stuff away from me, the stuff that was bringing me down, the stuff that was making me, go against my best interest. I let go of all that stuff. I had to. I couldn't do it anymore. You know, too many people are trying to cling to something that's not meant for them, and in doing so, you're missing the opportunity to grab what is meant for you. But understand this: if it's meant for you, you'll have it, but you can delay it, and that's what a lot of people are doing right now. They're delaying their blessings because they're clinging to bad habits. So please, 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 do the introspection, do the inner work, reflect, quit projecting on everybody, and reflect a little bit. Think about who you are and who you would rather be, and then make that happen. That is the best advice that I can give you. All right, so that's my spiel for today. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourself. Try and help take care of each other, and I'll catch you in the next one.